Hi, Nicola.
Hey, while we're waiting, I guess, for anybody else, I just wanted to check in on whether you still needed me for anything.
Yeah, we had spring break. Yes, I've been a bit out of the loop, and I know Tara was lost in TEF season.
Yes.
Last time I checked, Terry had some great pull requests, and we were mostly focused on getting content. I'm writing up something on the security side, so I think we're kind of good in terms of you've given us a really good structure to work with.
Okay.
So are you seeing the PRs come in? I think
I am. Yeah. So maybe what I'll do offline is maybe just check in with Tara and just see, from her side whether she thinks I should occasionally check in, or maybe Tara can just speak of Tara.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. I haven't joined in a few weeks either. So I was just saying to Tracy, I wanted to check in and see, how involved you still need me to be, or if I just check in periodically with you offline, or.
Hey, there we go. Sorry, having some technical difficulties. Good morning, everyone.
Hey.
Is it still morning for you all?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, barely for Nicola.
I'm still drinking coffee, so it's still morning.
Cheers. Okay. Yeah, we didn't. Okay, back up. So I've started cutting over more of the content. We ran into, I don't want to call it a challenge, a confusion. Whoever had, and I don't remember who it was, had organized the continuous delivery section. There's kind of, Tracy, you still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, there, okay. Nicola dropped. And you froze. I don't know. Oh, you're here? Okay.
Yep.
My connection is being all weird. Okay. So whoever had done the continuous delivery section, there's some weirdness there. It needs to be refactored, and I haven't had the headspace to kind of go in there and figure it out. So that it's hit a small snag, but I got a lot of the other stuff sorted. The two things, I guess the three things that we're looking at are completing the transition and edits of the content we have into the site.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Nicola, no expectations, but if you want to go in there, particularly this one section, and just offer opinion, professional opinion, I will not say no, because it's the more we started looking at it, it's like, this needs to be rewritten. So there's that. The second thing is, I haven't had a chance to talk to Kara yet, but we need to figure out getting it live.
Yep.
Because we also want to start soliciting the vendor content, and figuring out the whole community contributions in like real world scenarios and stuff like that. And the timeline is fast because we were talking about creating birds of a feather or similar virtual for CDCon. And then we were trying to figure out, could we turn that into like a workshop or some other form of useful gathering? Pardon me for eating my breakfast. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, nothing like conference-driven development, I feel.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. You're not wrong. So in the absence of any changes, I have to ping Kara, and this reminds me to do it today. And then I was just going to continue to kind of grab time here and there to finish the migrations. But maybe a question for you, Nicola, for something like the Salsa framework. I haven't actually gone and looked, so my bad. Are there good examples? I'm thinking of the Salsa framework just because we've talked about it, but in general, are there good examples for how to incorporate these real world use cases, primarily around recommendations on how to recruit content creators from companies who might be able to bring knowledge around this kind of stuff.
So you mean looking at Salsa and how they've brought people together and seeing if we can emulate that?
I brought up Salsa because I know that's something that it's hot right now, and I know it's something you know a little bit about. So it's just more like, okay, here's a framework around this idea that drive is an industry standard. You know, what are some of the things that as a community have happened to try and build that momentum and build the engagement?
Yes, I have something, like maybe I can show you what I've been.
And what's Chain Guard doing, which was going to be my follow-up question.
I started writing up those notes. Let me show them because I think it falls into this discussion, and I'd love to get Nicola's feedback on it as well and see how we incorporate. Okay.
Oh crap. Let me bring up. Does anybody have the agenda up? Otherwise, I'll bring it up.
Not right now. Nobody has it up.
Okay.
I haven't turned
I'll
on.
bring it up.
Okay, I can't actually share in Zoom because I haven't set things up. I'm just going to drop it in the. Wait, can I do that? Wait a minute, give me a second. Oh no, I'll have to do this later. I'm going to drop this in chat, and if you could open it up and then, or someone can share it. So the first thing is just trying to get some definitions. And when I said I'd write something up about the security space, to me, like the first question was, is it software supply chain security we want to focus on? Because we're focusing mostly on the delivery side. And by that, I mean, ignoring kind of best practices around code security and how you write secure code, because I feel that's out of scope. Like we don't talk in this document about designing and architecting code, so we can equally leave out that section of security. So I've gone through some definitions, and then I talked about kind of two ways to think about it. Why it matters is a bit light. I was hoping maybe other folks, so Terry could pipe in. I'm sure we could talk a lot more there. Key stakeholders, a little there. And then when it comes to best practices, I found I was very quickly getting into just pulling everything in about Salsa because in the short time, yeah, and in the short time I've been looking at stuff that seems to be resonating with people the most, and like people are actively using it in their roadmaps. So I thought, like, there's so many different things to it, it gives it such a nice structure. So then it almost got into, okay, there's so much you can say on each of these sections and different tools you can use. How do we go about, like, what more should we say here? Should we reference the Salsa website, or should we be talking more of specific case studies? And I think I can help with that because we're starting to talk to folks who are going through that pain.
So, okay, so in the area I'm in right now, as Tara said, I'm kind of involved with Salsa stuff from a Google perspective. Mm-hmm. So yes, there is the Salsa stuff, and so there is this line of, when do we just parrot? Do we just parrot what Salsa has? Exactly. How do we provide context around that? Where do we kind of draw those lines? The other thing is that we found that a lot of people out there just supply chain and software supply chain security, that term, you can kind of grok what that means, but it doesn't really, if you ask someone what is that, it's like they'll kind of make guesses about it. It isn't really, it's in the vocabulary of people who are in that space, but it's not really in the vocabulary of organizations in general. And so part of it is level setting and coming back and saying, well, what does supply chain security mean in the context of CI/CD? What does it mean in the context? What does it mean, versus say something like shift left, right? Because with supply chain security, it's more the idea that you've got things that you have to think about end to end. You have to think about third party. So it's not just about shifting left. It's about making sure you understand what all the attack vectors are. So a lot of what I'm doing and the planning that I'm doing now for sort of our position on how we're going to talk about it from a Google perspective is trying to provide some of that context for people who are newer to the space or want to understand, well, how does this relate to DevSecops, or how does this relate to CI/CD? And then you can get into, okay, so now that you understand that you have this full end-to-end story, here is a framework to help you look at what those attack vectors are, so that you have a vocabulary of where the entry points are and you understand where they are. And then here are some best practices to help you mitigate those threats. That's the approach that I'm kind of taking. With the stuff we have now, and it's under review, so like I don't have all the sort of, yes, everybody agrees with me, but I've run some of my outlines by a few people, and generally people have been like, yes, this one's helpful. So.
Yeah, so would it be worth then, like, that context there about shift left and DevSecops and where the overlap is, and like I think it's all different angles on overlapping problem space. Yeah,
it's an overlapping problem space. So some people will understand DevOps, some people will understand CI/CD, some people will understand DevSecops, but those terms have been around a little longer, and so sort of contextualizing that. The other piece then is what has been new in the past year with Salsa and so on is the emergence of frameworks and vocabulary to talk about these things, because from the little I know about something like DevSecops, it's like, yes, look at security, look at it in, across your whole chain, but like, what does that mean? Where do I start? What things am I looking for? And so these frameworks like Salsa that have come out now, NIST also has their I think it's secure software delivery framework.
SDF.
Yeah. So that's another thing where it's a framework, and and very specifically looking at, here are things in the software security space that you should be thinking about, rather than just take your DevOps and now think about security but not knowing where to start. So I think it's providing that context of, this is the layer that we have on top to help you really in a structured way, based on best practices of organizations who've been thinking about these things, how to approach that. So I think even on the Salsa site, they talk about it. It's a framework, but it's also kind of like a checklist, and it's a way to evaluate like what your maturity is now and how you can incrementally get there, rather than going, I have to fix all these things and I don't know where to start, right?
And then maybe is it worth adding, because like you mentioned the NIST SSDF, and I've been looking at that a lot, and the main feedback is like, it's a very complete framework. It includes more than supply chain, but equally it's so high level that, like, I've heard feedback from people, it's practically unimplementable, because it tries not to be opinionated and it tries to cover all these different industries, but almost as a result, there's so much homework for people to do to go figure things out that Salsa.
And yet for a long time, it was the best one out there.
Exactly.
From a simplicity standpoint,
so it's
compared to others.
Yeah, and it's good because it gives you the whole problem space and it doesn't shy away from that. But then when it comes to the practice and taking steps, like I think Salsa there, and just listening to what other people are telling me, it's much more focused. It allows you to do things incrementally, and it's, it is opinionated in a way that needs to stay away from being.
Yeah, so again, I haven't gotten feedback from folks yet, but the way that I've looked at it based on what I've seen out of Salsa and NIST, I generally agree. My thinking is that you can use both Dora and, if you're at Salsa 0 and you don't even have build automation and source control, then you kind of start there. So that's where we guide people first. And then assuming you have some foundational software practices, software delivery practices in place, then you look at Salsa, and that helps you to do an assessment. Once you have that, and it's then, okay, well, for my own organization, I need to come up with a policy, and what should go into that policy. So Salsa can help you with some of that, but I feel like NIST, being this really huge exhaustive thing, can then help you with, okay, here are some things that we can look at, and maybe there are some things that we don't prioritize right now, but it's pretty exhaustive, and so it can help you just think about what considerations you need to implement, and maybe things that you didn't even think of, right?
Yeah, and NIST covers a lot on vulnerability management and
that
whole remediation cycle, which
So I kind of see it as after you've had salsa and you have your sense of what the overall landscape is, NIST could help you get into some of the nitty gritty, but it feels like an overwhelming starting point.
I agree. Friends don't that with NIST. So how do we go about capturing that? Like, should we as much be putting some sections on the frameworks and just giving here's some frameworks and here's what the strengths are, and use it like I can write something on that? Would that be helpful to people? I think.
Sorry, I've been trying to capture with the notes. Can you say that one more time? Sorry.
I think, do you think it would be helpful to do add a section in on the NIST SSDF, giving a high level, like here's a framework, this is its focus areas, here's its strengths and weaknesses kind of thing?
I think it would be very useful to basically TOC some of the more relevant frameworks.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a redirect, but having a list in like some context like that, I think would be very useful. Hello, Justin. I just noticed that you were there. Good time zone appropriate greeting.
And Nicola, are you with the Salsa? I love and I've seen people use it a lot. You know, the image of all the different points in the supply chain.
Yeah.
Attacks. I think that would be great if we could include it in the section, because that seems like nothing else to get the message across.
Yeah. So I don't know. You know, we could probably do a version of that process.
Okay, cool.
Somebody got construction going on?
Yeah, sorry about that. I've got some stuff
Okay,
going on right outside my window, so.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. That must be driving you nuts. Okay, and then I'm sorry, Nicola. What were you saying? I was having an ADD moment.
Oh, I forget.
Something
I have
about the frameworks that you were working on.
So we have NIST, we have Salsa. I think also just there are other resources like what is it? Oh, Dev has a bunch of things around, like you can look at open source software and sort of whether it's been deemed like it looks safe. There are probably other resources we can point to. Yeah, so as I said, I'm working on some stuff from Google perspective on Salsa. I don't know what the timeline is for the conference that we're aiming for here, but I'm aiming to have things ready for early May. So there will be some content that you can look at that I will probably be putting out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be great. The first deadline, I think, is the 11th for CDCon.
Okay.
But that's just getting the proposal in, and like I said, we're hoping to do a repeat where we kind of have a working session with interested parties. So the deadline around that would be maybe having an initial example or two. And I think Justin, you had, or I've slept since then. I think it was Justin. It might have been someone else who said that they would have their company example that they could get prepared. So if we had a couple that we could get published, then we have a baseline, and then there could be a discussion around, how to make this the most useful. We still, have to work out things like discoverability and tagging and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Google, for telling me I need to relaunch Chrome. I'll do it later.
And just, can I ask, for the case study, that's a general one. It's not specific to security. It's more continuous delivery and DevOps. Is that right?
In a general one, but I think Nicola, yours would have a security lean.
So
So-
I have some content that I'm working on that's specific to supply chain security. We do have some stuff around CD that is already published. I could probably talk to the editors and just find out like what
for
their policy is.
SVC. Okay.
There's like the Golden Path stuff, and I don't know whether that would be something that might be interesting to republish, for example.
The golden what? Sorry, I'm not familiar.
The Golden Path.
We call it Golden Path internally. It's basically just it's using a bunch of Google products
Okay. Yeah.
for CD. Yeah.
With,
it would-
with
if-
the for
yeah.
secure, like how you would do it in a secure way, if I'm remembering.
Yeah.
This was Vixen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it was Vixen. Yeah, yeah. So we have that. That could be something we could put in as an example. I don't know. I'd have to look into sort of republishing, but yeah.
Okay. That would be kind of cool, actually, to see if we could add more visibility to dev, because that's a stupendous project, and I know it was between y'all and the wall. It was slightly controversial inside of Google, but I think most of us think it was a lovely thing and is a lovely thing, and we should try and talk it up. If you're not familiar, it's the guy who invented Go originally went off and invented this.
Oh, cool. I have not seen
So
that.
it's,
before.
yeah, Dan and Kim should know quite a bit about this.
Yeah.
It's basically, how do you know that your dependencies aren't going to screw you
Yes.
by language? So it's a pretty cool thing. Okay. All right, so current action items, just to kind of let's see, current action items. So finish edits and review of current content. I think, did my last PR get approved? I think we just pushed it through. Hang on. Best practices site. There are no active pull requests. Okay. So the latest round of content is published, or is committed. As a reminder, that link is here. Terry and I had a pretty cool working session, fun with Hugo. I wasn't actually able to get a container-based system working on my Google laptop because Corp, but just running the Hugo server directly seemed to work well. And trying to do real work on a Windows machine, my gaming machine over here, I was just like, God damn it. So I'm finally going to break down and get a Mac Mini, so I have a machine that I like developing on that is not controlled by Google corporate overlords.
I ended up putting Docker on my desktop rather than trying to mug around on my laptop.
Yeah. So yeah, the whole change, I mean, they're within their rights to do whatever they want, but that whole change around the Docker stuff was like,
Yeah.
because if you work at Google, you're screwed, because Google's not going to pay attention to the small number of people who are like, can we please get the licensing so we can run Docker desktop? Anyway, all right. Okay, so let me add that to the notes. Justin, did I remember correctly? And you did have a scenario that you were interested in speaking to?
I have two action items that I know of. One, write up a case study for eBay's pipeline shape, which is, I think, the thing that you're talking about.
Oops, I put the wrong link in there. Hang on. I was pointing you at my fork, which, while I'm sure it is deeply interesting to you all, is not actually the useful one. There we go. Okay. You have and that pull request is still live. Crap. Somebody want to look at that? Give me a bless.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Apologies,
Justin,
I'm very late.
fired. Hello, Terry. So you're going to create a PR, Justin?
Yes, I'll create a PR for what eBay's, I'll probably do one for what eBay's current pipelines look like, and then what we're a directional pipeline that we're heading towards.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
And then
A
I
workshop at
have,
CDCon? I'm kidding. Keep going.
I also have a to-do that I'm not actually, I wrote the note, but I don't remember what it's for. So I'm going to delete it after this meeting if no one knows what I should be doing as a result. Work on the assessment section of CDF output.
Oh, I think that was like, how do you assess where you are in best practices across the board? So like, are you using version control? Yes, no kind of thing. But I recall you had an idea around doing an assessment tool, and I really like that idea, but ended up focusing on the security stuff first. So we can delete it.
Can I make a pull request into this best practices repository?
Sorry, say again.
Should the output of this work be to create a pull request into the best practices repository?
Yes, I think we have an assessment section in the outline that's kind of light on material.
Great.
Apparently, oh, right. There was a big thing with a Chrome reinstall, and I had to blow my whole history, which proved to be very irritating. Okay, here's the latest site. See, resources.
There's the SS on the main page.
Was it on the main page? No, hang on.
That's the first.
This one.
Yeah.
Ah, there we go. Learn, assess. Yeah, it's kind of late. Okay. So can you see that? Can you, here, let me drop the link in for you, Justin. Make sure that you have access to this thing, to the Netlify. I don't remember if you got an account. If not,
Do
you
not
should.
recall either.
Okay. If that link works for you, and you're logged into GitHub, you're good. If not, we should get you access. But you can certainly pull the repo and just run Hugo locally for testing. Okay, you're good. All right. Learn. User study. Okay. Oh, and I also have a Tara to do same for TechCon. I was going to go talk to the TechCon writer. Javier, no, I forget his name, but I have it written down. Okay. Though I may hold off on that one if we're going to have Golden Path go up to make sure that we don't overload the Google. So, okay. And then Tracy for, sorry, circling back. Were you going to, did you want to speak to SigStore as a possible use case?
Yep. So
Okay.
what I'm thinking for that document, I'll have another pass at it. I'll put down the frameworks and I'll talk about like pros and cons, and then link to the sites so people can go find the information there, and then start highlighting specific solutions. And SigStore is the one around provenance and code signing. So I can write something around that.
At some point, whatever happened with the, I know I asked this before and you probably answered and I can't remember, the senility it burns. The whole SBOM thing that Kay Williams was driving, did that go beyond, where did that end up? Because even if it's not CDF and they did their own foundation, having the bill of materials discussion, the broader bill of materials discussion, I think is a good one.
Yeah, so eventually, well, there's sort of two organizations it's split between, but I think a lot is happening in the OpenSSF, and most SBOM stuff is either like SPDX or Cyclone. So I can put a section in there. Actually, there's a article a colleague at Chain Guard wrote. It's a kind of overview of SBOMs. I could go take that and refresh it and see how we could fit it in a nice SBOM section, the state of SBOMs. Let me find
I
it.
happen to have a need currently internally to be generating SBOMs, and so the content would be timely for me.
It's
Yeah.
one of those things that if you can get it set up, you know, it's really helpful for you know, being audited. And in a cloud-based space where you have lots of ephemeral things, frankly, a much better mechanism. And actually, speaking of that, compliance, I think is something that we probably would want to speak to more. I know we've talked about it.
I can do SBOMs and I'll take stuff from that blog post. And I know there's been a few things developed since then, like a number of tools now will auto-generate you SBOMs. So I can add that in. Compliance, if it's all that kind of Kyverno and OPA, I'm not up to speed on that. So I'm staying away for now.
Okay. Would we want to have, we have security, and do we want to bring compliance out as at its own level, or maybe have it be a easily identifiable subcategory? Because they're not necessarily the same.
Yeah.
They're important in different ways.
Well, and compliance can encompass things that aren't necessarily security.
And vice versa, right? So that's why I'm
Yeah.
proposing maybe we have another high-level section under Learn for compliance. Specifically around the mechanics of it. Like, how can you build in compliance-oriented best practices into your pipeline? For things like SBOM, that's like absolutely a great example. That's its instrumentation.
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we have to try to write it out and see if how much stuff there is. But yeah, I think it makes sense based on what people talk about.
TBD. All right. Slowly we make progress. Let me get the pull request in there. Great. So I'm wondering, oh, actually, let's talk about this PR really quick, because now I'm remembering how this all went down. So I'm thinking, Terry, maybe we just, the one question was the continuous deployment versus delivery, or yeah. I'm thinking we land this and then start a new edit on that so that the content can, since we're not live yet, because we were talking about having more review.
We could do, but it's just a simple blanket replace on all instances.
Do you think that's all it is?
Isn't it?
Because
Yeah.
I don't know. I started to, maybe I was just second guessing it. Because we do have, I mean, deployments does have a definition. All right, I'll take another stab.
Yeah, I think we must have written that before we got the agreed definitions of all the terms.
I think so.
It ended up using the wrong one.
I agree. I thought I'd flag that somewhere, but probably got lost in all the different docs and stuff.
Yeah, that's why I was like, let's just make it so that we're finally just fully landed into the repo so we can retire the Google Docs.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I think if you just do a search and replace on it, it'll get us close, and then we can review, and if there are any individual instances that we think should be different, then we'll just tweak those.
All right, I accept that proposal. That seems like a good approach. Replace.
Other way around?
Other way around, yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, it was.
Delivery for deployment.
It was in the section that should have
So
been
the section was
deployment,
called continuous delivery, but
and,
then
and it
the
should
word
have been deployment.
But then we had the argument about, oh, that's where it all ended up. And the argument of deployment is too specific because it was included endpoint.
Oh, but that
God damn it.
definition, I don't know where that endpoint definition came from because that was
All right.
not from the list. So I saw this in background. I can take a closer look and try and connect things.
I've slept since then, and I have a completely new role at work, which has consumed me. So had hoped to finish this 2 weeks ago and completely. All right. This is the one area where we had some small amount of controversy. Naturally. Wait.
It's always going to be the same place, to be honest.
Yes. Okay. Review for consistency against definitions. Okay. All right. So wait. So Justin, you only have one line, but it has two things in it. So at your convenience and ability, Nicola, let me know about Golden Path discussions. I will try, and I think I could probably spend some time this afternoon cleaning up that PR and get it landed. And then Tracy, you will keep working on your thing. And what were we saying about Terry? We were going to ask him to review. Was that what we were going to do? Your name came up, Terry. Your ears must have been burning.
Terry, any additional input? Share the best practices for software supply chain security. If you could take a look, and I've got some great feedback from folks here. But yeah, appreciate any input you might have before I do a second pass or after.
Okay.
Okay, links in the notes.
And yeah, particularly I had a why it matters section, which was very light, and I felt you might have some strong input there.
Okay, no problem.
Not that you ever have opinions about things.
No, never.
Just trying to encourage him to not be shy, you know.
Yes, no, I know. Terribly quiet about his thoughts. All right, do we have any other agenda items? Okay. Before you joined, Terry, we were talking about, you and I had started talking last week, you know, do we think we can pull together enough stuff to, in time for is the deadline the 11th for CDCon for a BOF? I can't remember what the date was.
Yesterday, wasn't it?
Oh, was it yesterday? Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Well, I may have to bat my eyelashes at Kara because I got sucked into a week worth of working on something for TK, which I could not. When your boss says you need to work on this thing that the head of Google Cloud is looking at, one must nod and say yes. So I got completely sidetracked. I will own that since that was my fault. I have to talk to Kara anyway. Okay. And oops. Anything else? All right. Well, in that case, I'll give you 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 18 minutes back. Lovely to see you all. See you on channel.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.